Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for checking out my video, Questions from Comments 16. This is a really cool question. I mean, I kind of say that about all of them, so, just being consistent, I suppose. Anyways, I love these questions. I love getting your questions. This one's in 3 parts, so rather than read the whole thing, I'm going to read one bit, and then the next bit, and the next bit, and then we'll kind of go through it piece by piece. Really, really insightful stuff here. Let's get started. First of all, they're very gracious, and thank you. I appreciate your kind words regarding the videos and all of the warm-ups and things like that here on YouTube. Thank you. It's very, very much appreciated. Number 1. Is voice training more about discovering your voice, developing your voice, or some combination of the two? What I mean is that I've heard some say in order to sing, you just learn to release tension and blockages in order to allow singing to happen naturally. However, others describe learning to sing as if it's athletic training, akin to dancing or ballet or lifting weights, and that by doing specific exercises you will build the proper muscles, their coordination, and strengthen your voice. My hunch and experience as a slowly growing singer is that you need both. Curious as to your thoughts. Yeah, I think you're right about that. You'll hear me refer to singing more as an athletic event than a mathematics problem set or something to that effect, which is to say that oftentimes music gets compared to mathematics, which there is some appropriateness of that for sure, but there is also an athleticism to it. Now, that's not to say you have to step out your door and run a marathon and come back in and start singing your scales. That's not it at all. It's more that you are using the musculature of your body to control things indirectly to get a desired result. And the tension release is often involved in musculature that is part of that primary kind of control mechanism, the muscles that you can directly control. So you can control your rectus abdominis muscles directly. You can control your inner and outer oblique muscles directly. But you cannot directly control the musculature that is involved with diaphragmatic breathing or the use of the diaphragm in singing. And so you have to learn to use these primary muscle groups that you can primarily control directly to influence the behavior of the muscle groups that help us to have good coordination and good airflow, good subglottic air pressure, the things that are required for good singing. Similarly, with the vocal folds and especially the cricothyroid dominant singing, where you have the secondary set of muscle groups that are elongating the vocal folds to make that seamless transition into the upper register of your voice. So an analogy might be that you are going to paint an eggshell, but the apparatus that had control of the brush or brushes, you couldn't really feel the muscles for. You could only feel the muscles that were attached to those muscles. So you had like a set of muscles that you were then manipulating, and they were going to have an impact on the muscles that were controlling the brushes. And then you somehow had to create a very intricate pattern on that delicate eggshell. It's a balancing act, and we get control of some muscle groups, and we have to learn to use those to influence the behavior of other muscles to get the results that we want. So yes, you're right. It's a little bit of each. It's about releasing tension in those muscles where it's not necessary. Quite frankly, speaking for myself, when I was learning arpeggio, I went through a very high muscle tension phase where I was carrying a lot of muscle engagement trying to make the system work. And I had to back off, focus more on my lateral expansion, and that really unlocked the process for me. You'll see this also occur in the facial muscles, in the neck muscles, and around the vocal folds. When we learn bad habits before we get to vocal training, we then have to undo a lot of that. We have to release that tension, that engagement. Number 2, I can't recall hearing you discuss the topic of embouchure. Would love to hear how you define and describe it and its value to good vocalizing and singing. Well spotted, really. I think I may have mentioned a hung jaw in some of my live events or maybe in some of my other Q&A videos, but not necessarily on the warm-ups for the channels. And that's a little bit of an oversight. What we are looking for is a hung jaw, which is to say neither too open nor too closed, where it's too close there between the molars. A hung jaw, so a little bit open, not all the way open, not all the way closed, really. You read about it, that's the term that gets used in the pedagogical texts, is a hung jaw. One of the key aspects about this is that we try to keep it loose, and so there's at least 1 or 2 videos where I talk about gently opening the jaw on an ascending phrase and gently allowing it to come somewhat more closed on descending phrases. And while yes, certain vowels benefit from a wider aperture in higher tessitura, that's more about learning to be flexible with the musculature around the jaw. In other words, that release that you were talking about in your first question, you can work on a little bit of that muscle release in the TMJ joints by just trying to gently open and close as you ascend and descend. Use a mirror if you do that, or monitor your jaw with your hands, so feel that it's opening gradually and closing gradually, because what you don't want is where it just pops open at the vowel change or at the 5th scale degree and then stays there. We're looking for kind of motion along the entire duration of the exercise, so it's just gently moving. And what that will help us cultivate is that jaw release. We're cultivating release here, so we have flexibility. This directly correlates to singing songs where you might go from one part of your vocal range to another, like from a low note to a high note or vice versa, and a different jaw position is appropriate to facilitate that. Additionally, vowels, consonants change, and so the requirements of the oral cavity change along with them. Flexibility is what we want to cultivate. Finally, number 3. Might you have any thoughts on the psychology of learning to sing? Are there patterns or themes you have seen in yourself and or your students? For example, overcoming challenges and insecurity, common stuck points, what it takes to have a breakthrough and helpful mindset for not getting discouraged, and fostering continued growth and enjoyment of singing. And then they finish their question with, I know these are complex topics, but if you think your answers might help others, I'd love to hear what you would say. Keep on doing your amazing work. Thank you again for that. Number 3 is particularly complex. And I think really quite near and dear to my heart as someone who has and kind of still continues to grapple with performance anxiety to the levels that I do. I think that there can be far fewer endeavors that are, I mean, there's many intimate, expressive things that we can do to express ourselves. And of course, that's a very subjective thing to think about when you think about self-expression. What feels incredibly intimate to me could feel entirely like nothing to somebody else, and vice versa. Their intimacy with their chosen mode of expression could be pretty casual to me, but extremely intimate to them. Music to me is an incredibly intimate and personal expression of oneself, even in the teaching of it, quite frankly. And when it comes to instruments and modes of expression, I can think of far fewer modes of expression than the human voice that are so internal to the individual and so personal. And so I think these are really, really delicate topics that go very, very deep. Speaking for myself, patterns. My pattern is the presence of I call it crosstalk, and I label it the saboteur. So that is my internal bête noire, if you will, the sort of aspect of my insecurity and self-doubt that manifests itself in performance. And it arises basically at any given opportunity where there is a public performance, whether it's in fact in public at the moment or will be in the future. Of course, this video is not in a public space. I'm here in my very safe and reasonably quiet studio, and yet I know that this is going to be in the public venue, and so the saboteur shows up just the same in the hours before I get started. It takes a lot of discipline for me to deal with those elements of my psychology. A lot of it is not particularly savvy. It's a lot of gritting one's teeth. Gritting my teeth. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of thought. It's a lot of visualization and practice performing. So I practice performing in front of mirrors or just in rooms. I may talk to myself and practice things out loud. These videos are not scripted per se, though sometimes I will gather my thoughts together so that I have an outline and things like that. But mostly I am speaking to you as if we were here together having a coffee or a cup of tea or something to that effect, and you had asked me these questions. So practice is part of it. I've spent a lot of time in personal exploration of the saboteur and of the crosstalk of which I speak. And so I know it, I see it, I recognize it, and I kind of address it directly to myself in the moments before I'm going to begin to shoot a video or do a performance or something to that effect. There are lots and lots of books written on these subjects. My practical advice for those that may have similar aspects of performance anxiety is to try to figure out a very, very gradual, delineated process where you can challenge that crosstalk, challenge those insecurities in ever-increasing, less safe ways. So you might start by simply making a recording of your voice on your phone and then immediately destroying it. Maybe you don't even listen to it. Maybe you just do the recording and then out of there. And then maybe, you do that a couple times and then you do another one, but this one you listen to and see what your response is. And go home and practice a bit more, or I guess, just practice more. You don't necessarily have to go home. You can go wherever it is you practice or keep practicing or something to that effect. Do that a few more times and then see if you can figure out what the next step might be for you. Keeping in mind where you want to go with these things. If you want to make videos for YouTube, if you want to, when we can do gigs and things like that, or live performances, if that's what you want to do, keep in mind the destination that you wish to go to as you get yourself increasingly small steps towards that goal. I would suggest that it is quite likely that there will be backtracks, that this is not a linear process, nor is music study in general. It will kind of plateau for a time, and then you will apparently take a leap forward in your abilities or acuity. And it's not that you just did a big leap because of something you did that day. It's because you've been practicing the whole time. Daily practice is a great asset when it comes towards dealing with performance anxiety, because you can have confidence in the work that you have done leading up to that event, that performance, whatever it may be. It's going to come a lot from self-exploration in identifying what is tripping you up, testing out strategies, knowing that it's likely you will have failures and it will be uncomfortable from time to time, but that you try them. If it works, great, you can do that again, or you can try something else that might elaborate on it. If it doesn't work, that didn't work, let that one go, move on. We're gonna try different things on that path. So I hope that this has answered your questions. If you have any follow-ups, of course, leave them in the comments here. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Jeff. Take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.